Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, this is APCD's Attainment Plan workshop. First, we're just going to go over a few housekeeping items. This is the first time the APCD will be conducting this Attainment Plan workshop virtually. So we're going to try and work through the technology as best we can. We've had a test run, but you never know with these things. And so we do appreciate your patience and your flexibility. We are going to be recording this presentation, and it will be posted on APCD's Air Quality Planning webpage as soon as we can. The presentation, however, will be posted on the webpage tomorrow. It could be tonight as well. All attendees are muted by default. The moderator will be able to mute and unmute designated presenters as needed. We're requesting that comments be submitted in writing using the Q&A function here in the BlueJeans app. APCD staff will attempt to answer the comments at the conclusion of the presentation as best we can. Comments are also can be submitted directly to me via email. My name is Nick Cormier. The email address should be nick.cormier@sdcounty.ca.gov. And we're requesting comments be submitted by July 31st, 2020. And we're going to do our best to answer the questions that we receive here today at the conclusion of the presentation. But if we're unable to provide an answer or we need some additional information, they will be fully addressed in our workshop report that will follow and be sent to all attendees in early August. So I just wanted to go through that real quick before we officially kick things off. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you, everyone. Welcome to the first Attainment Plan workshop. Again, my name is Nick Cormier here at APCD, and I'm happy to be with you today. With me, we have our Air Pollution Control Officer, Rob Ryder. We also have my supervisor, Kathy Kian, who will be facilitating comments and questions as they come in during the presentation. We also have Angie Ortega, Jim Swaney on the line, and possibly a few other APCD staff that can assist with answering questions in their respective fields. We also have our IT folks that are keeping us in line and keeping the technology working, so we do appreciate that. The district has collaborated with the EPA and CARB to draft a new plan that provides the blueprint for how the region will further reduce air pollution in order to attain the National Ambient Air Quality Standards for ozone. The APCD released this draft plan on July 1st and will hold online public workshops via webinar today and on July 13th to gather and consider public input and then finalize the proposed plan for the Air Pollution Control Board's consideration in late September. The following presentation provides an overview of this draft plan. As always, we welcome your suggestions, comments, and questions. Here's an overview of today's presentation. First, we'll discuss the nature of ozone pollution and its adverse impacts on public health. Next, we'll identify the government agencies charged with regulating and reducing ozone pollution. We'll then review the key actions already taken to reduce ozone pollution and additional actions that are warranted to further reduce it. We'll highlight the contents of the draft ozone attainment plan and what it means for businesses. We'll review our next steps and timeline. And of course, we'll welcome your feedback and questions at the conclusion of the presentation. To start, what exactly does cause ozone pollution? Ozone pollution is formed when common air pollutants emitted by all types of sources, including vehicles, off-road equipment, factories, consumer products, and other sources, chemically react under the influence of sunlight and heat. The concentration of ozone pollution is as dependent on the sunshine and temperature as it is on the presence of ozone-forming emissions. This ozone, known as ground-level ozone, is harmful to breathe and therefore is regulated as an air pollutant. Conversely, ozone in the upper atmosphere is considered to be good, protecting us from harmful UV radiation. San Diego, with its sunny climate, topographic features, and proximity to the Pacific Ocean, is well suited to ozone pollution formation and buildup. Air pollution is emitted throughout the populated areas of the county, primarily in the coastal plains. The ocean breeze blows it eastward, across the inland valleys. As the emissions move eastward, they have time to react under sunlight to form ozone, which becomes trapped against the foothills and mountains. At the same time, cooler marine air from the ocean displaces the warmer air aloft, creating an inversion layer in the atmosphere that traps ozone pollution beneath it. This is why the district's air monitoring station at Alpine, which is located at an elevation of around 2,000 feet, experiences higher summertime ozone levels than other areas of the region. Although ozone levels are lower in the populated coastal plain, the entire region is considered non-attainment because sources throughout the region contribute to ozone pollution in downwind Alpine. Ozone pollution is most appropriately addressed through a regional plan, given that sources throughout the region contribute to ozone pollution levels. Whereas much of the populated coastal plain has good air quality with respect to ozone, communities are impacted by localized air pollution from nearby roadways, factories, and port operations, to name a few. Thus, pursuant to state law, APCD is also implementing a community air protection program. APCD has partnered with the Portside Environmental Justice Community to measure air pollution and reduce health impacts in the neighborhoods of Barrio Logan, Logan Heights, Sherman Heights, Western National City, and Western National City. We are working with the AB 617 Community Steering Committee to draft a Community Emission Reductions Program, or CERP, separate from today's ozone plan. This will drive deployment of cleaner technologies and reduce ozone exposure to air pollution in these neighborhoods. The draft CERP will also consider incentive-based strategies, as well as regulatory, land use, and transportation strategies to reduce localized air pollution. The health impacts of ozone are well studied. In short, ozone makes it harder to breathe. Ground-level ozone irritates and inflames air passageways. Typical symptoms include headache, cough, shortness of breath, and chest tightness when taking a deep breath. As with any health issue, impacts will vary widely by person. Children and seniors are at increased risk of health impacts. So are people with existing lung disease and those who spend time outdoors. Because ozone is fueled by sunshine, ozone concentrations are highest in the spring and summer months. Additionally, as previously mentioned, ozone concentrations are typically higher in downwind inland areas. The APCD is part of a coordinated three-tiered approach to regulating and cleaning up ozone and other air pollution. The United States Environmental Protection Agency regulates emissions from interstate traveling sources, including airplanes, trains, and ships. The EPA also regulates large stationary sources of air pollution, which are typically large factories. The California Air Resources Board regulates emissions from on-road and off-road vehicles within California, and also from a broad spectrum of consumer products that we all use on a daily basis, including personal care products such as household cleaners and solvents. The APCD has primary responsibility for regulating the stationary sources in the region, such as large industrial facilities, including power plants and landfills, as well as smaller commercial establishments such as gas stations and dry cleaners. What actions have we already taken to improve air quality? Here's a high-level overview. The APCD has adopted over 300 new and amended rules to control and reduce air pollution from a broad array of stationary sources, as mentioned on the previous slide. Staff will continue to implement and enforce these rules in order to safeguard air quality and public health. However, mobile sources comprise a much larger contribution to air pollution, and reducing their emissions is a key strategy for attaining the ozone standards throughout the region. Accordingly, APCD has entered into an agreement with CARB to assist with local enforcement of the state's regulations for heavy-duty diesel trucks and off-road equipment. APCD is the only air district in California with dedicated mobile source inspectors. The purpose is to ensure these sources are as clean as they are supposed to be. Additionally, APCD has long implemented grant programs to provide monetary incentives for sources to voluntarily achieve emission reductions beyond what is required by law or regulation. To date, the APCD has allocated over $131 million to businesses to upgrade to cleaner, more efficient vehicles and equipment at a reduced cost. Each dollar invested is estimated to result in between $3 to $30 in economic benefits due to fewer workday losses, fewer school days missed, and reduced healthcare-related costs. As a result of these actions, air quality in the San Diego region currently meets 5 of the 6 health-based standards or limits set by the EPA, as shown in this slide. Ozone is the only air pollutant in the region that does not meet the respective standards. Further reduction in ozone pollution is necessary, especially in the inland areas, in order to meet the ozone standards. This is the purpose of the prepared draft ozone attainment plan. Ozone-forming emissions have been trending downward as a result of the clean air actions highlighted earlier. As can be seen on this chart, emissions have dropped by 58% since 2000. In fact, emissions are now at their lowest levels on record. This is noteworthy considering the regional and economic growth that has occurred over the years. The reduction in emissions has resulted in improved air quality, as can be seen in this chart. This is the trend line for ozone pollution as measured at the Alpine Monitoring Station, where ozone levels have trended downward over the years. There is year-to-year variability caused by weather, and upticks in ozone are associated with hotter years. However, overall, these upticks only reflect a flattening of progress, rather than a major change in the opposite direction. Regardless, it's clear that additional progress is necessary in order to meet the standards and protect public health throughout the region. But how does San Diego's ozone pollution problem compare with other metropolitan areas in California? It's not necessarily an apples-to-apples comparison, as each air district has its own meteorology, topography, and mix of emission sources. Regardless, the other areas have also made progress overall. However, each of the large air districts are non-attainment for one or both ozone standards, meaning that ozone pollution can still reach unhealthful levels at times. It is the goal of each of these air districts to further reduce emissions in order to attain the standards and protect public health. But what are San Diego's key challenges to attaining the standards? Mobile sources, which are regulated at the state and federal levels, are the #1 challenge to attaining the ozone standards in San Diego. Mobile sources, which generate over 90% of the NOx emissions, are driving ozone pollution levels. This chart depicts the top 7 sources of NOx emissions in San Diego County. Mobile sources comprise the top 6 categories, with NOx emissions from all stationary sources combined in the region at the far end. This underscores the importance of the district's efforts to facilitate mobile source emission reductions through our incentive grant programs, as well as our mobile source compliance program. Climate change and rising temperatures are another challenge to the region's ozone attainment efforts. San Diego has experienced average annual temperatures well above average in recent years, which contributed to an uptick in ozone levels just as the region was nearing attainment of the 2008 ozone standard. This can be seen in the yellow highlighted part of this chart. But there is good news. Since greenhouse gases are often co-emitted with ozone-forming pollutants, the two problems can be tackled together through many of the same emission reduction strategies. Before moving ahead, it's important to put emission reductions in perspective that is more understandable. As we go through the following slides, consider the following comparison. When the metric of 1 ton per day of NOx emission is used, it's approximately equal to the NOx being emitted from 350,000 passenger cars in the region. As described in the draft ozone plan, ozone-forming emissions are projected to continue to decline in the region, with a 10% drop in 2026 and a 14% drop by 2032 compared to 2020 levels. This will be achieved by continuing to implement all existing measures, as well as recent and planned rulemakings to control and reduce emissions. We have already started this effort with APCD's adoption of more stringent rules for boilers and engines, which were adopted by our board yesterday. We also plan to amend our paints and coatings rules, as well as our stationary turbine and a possible new landfill flare rule within the next year. Alongside these measures, we also will continue to adopt all feasible measures as they become cost-effective pursuant to state law. In addition to rulemaking, the district will also continue to expand our incentives programs. Many are familiar with the APCD's legacy grant programs, such as the Carl Moyer and Farmer programs. But we also are planning to launch several new programs soon that will further reduce air pollution. These include regional programs like an old car retirement scrapping program and an EV charger installation program. We are also planning to apply for funding to participate in the state's Clean Cars for All program, which will encourage cleaner vehicle purchases in disadvantaged communities. At the same time, CARB will also continue pursuing additional regulatory and incentive strategies to further reduce emissions. These include the recently adopted Advanced Clean Trucks regulation to increase the number of EV trucks on the market over time, as well as setting more stringent emission standards for heavy-duty trucks and ships, which are the two top sources of NOx in the region. Additionally, in 2021, CARB seeks to establish a smog check type program for heavy-duty trucks to ensure truck emission systems are operating as designed. APCD meets monthly with SANDAG, Caltrans, the EPA, CARB, and the United States Department of Transportation to discuss the region's transportation plans and projects, and to coordinate efforts towards meeting our clean air and mobility goals. The draft ozone attainment plan requires a 30% drop in on-road transportation emissions by 2026 and a 40% drop by 2032 relative to 2020 emission levels. Going forward, in order for SANDAG's transportation plans to receive approval at the state and federal levels, SANDAG will need to demonstrate that the total emissions from implementing those transportation plans will not exceed the reduced emission levels shown here. As part of this attainment plan, CARB conducted air quality modeling to forecast San Diego's future ozone scenarios. CARB's model used complex computer programs, sophisticated computer hardware, and large databases to calculate the impact that San Diego's emissions, meteorology, and photochemistry will have on air pollution. The result is a set of predictions for future ozone levels. The model predicts that ozone levels will continue declining as a result of the projected emission reductions, and the region is predicted to attain the 2008 standard by 2026 and the more stringent 2015 ozone standard in 2032. Federal law allows more time to attain the standard, but doing so triggers a classification of severe non-attainment. Today, San Diego County is currently a serious non-attainment area for the 2008 ozone standard, shown on the green arrow, and a moderate non-attainment area for the 2015 ozone standard, shown on the purple arrow. The predicted attainment years of 2026 and 2032 are consistent with the federal Clean Air Act deadlines of a severe non-attainment area for both ozone standards. But while the Clean Air Act allows additional time to attain, it's not necessarily a free pass to continue status quo conditions. With the severe reclassification does come more requirements. Some of these additional requirements are summarized on this table. They include revisions to what facilities are considered as a major source under federal permitting programs like Title V and New Source Review. For example, major sources currently considered in our Title V and New Source Review programs have thresholds of either 100 or 50 tons per year to be subject to additional requirements, controls, monitoring, and/or offsets. When the EPA reclassifies the region to severe non-attainment status in the future, that threshold would reduce to 25 tons per year for both programs, with the intended effect of bringing in more sources to each respective program. Though this change will affect some sources in the county, the district predicts that under 25 sources may be affected by the change countywide. APCD will be engaging with these sources to assist with any regulatory changes necessary. Similarly, the offset ratio for our New Source Review program will increase to a higher level, going from 1.2 to 1 to 1.3 to 1. Because a severe reclassification is necessary for the reasons we noted today, The draft attainment plan complies with state and federal guidance to satisfy all requirements of a severe non-attainment area for both ozone standards. It includes existing and predicted regional air quality data and emission inventories of stationary, area-wide, and mobile sources of air pollution. It also includes analysis of the existing pollution reduction measures and how they will continue reducing ozone through 2032, as well as future measures that may provide additional reductions beyond what is already predicted. The plan also includes various analyses required by the Clean Air Act to demonstrate that the region will continue to make annual emission reduction progress, as well as demonstration that the region was not predicted to attain sooner than the predicted attainment years. Finally, the plan includes an attainment demonstration using CARB modeling to conclude that the attainment years predicted are appropriate and satisfy all federal criteria. The plan and supplementary documentation are now available on APCD's website at the link on the screen. The plan is long and detailed, as it covers planning requirements for both ozone standards in one document. Consequently, the following chart explains how the document is set up for both ozone standards. Section 1 and 2 provide information that is complementary and shared between the two ozone standards. Section 3, shown in green, focuses on specific requirements applicable only to the 2008 ozone standard. Similarly, Section 4, shown in purple, focuses on requirements applicable only to the 2015 ozone standard. Now that we have released our draft plan, it's important to engage with a wide spectrum of stakeholders, including those listed here and others. APCD has started notifying the following groups to provide transparency and open lines of communication. It is our intent to circle back as time allows to further engage these groups prior to board consideration. Here are our next steps. We released the draft document and CEQA analysis on July 1st and presented this presentation to the APCD Advisory Committee yesterday. Today is the first of two public workshops, with the second being held on Monday, July 13th. The presentation for the next workshop will mirror today's presentation. We are soliciting comments on the draft plan and CEQA analysis through July 31st, 2020. We plan to return to the Advisory Committee again in August to present any updates to the plan based on feedback received from public workshops and other outreach conducted. We also plan to present at an upcoming AB 617 Steering Committee meeting, as well as an AIWG meeting at the end of the month. If recommended for board consideration, the Air Pollution Control Board would then consider the plan in late September. If approved by the local board, the CARB board would then consider the plan for state approval in late October, and if approved, be submitted to the EPA shortly thereafter. As mentioned, all documentation can be found at the link on this slide or by following the main page of the APCD website. The Air Quality Planning webpage, where the document is housed, also includes fact sheets on ozone, as well as ways that you can be a part of the solution to reduce air pollution, just by doing simple things at home and at work. Finally, our contact information is included here in case you have any questions or concerns or need to follow up with us on anything you heard today. That is the conclusion of this presentation. We do thank you for your time today. A few reminders before we start answering questions. A PDF copy of the presentation will be posted on the Air Quality Planning webpage today, as we noted, with the recording of the presentation going up as soon as feasible. We will also be providing more detailed responses to any comments in a forthcoming workshop report that will be going out in early August. And at this time, I'd be happy to take questions, and I will go ahead and toss it over to Kathy Kean, who has been monitoring questions and comments that have been coming in. Kathy, are there any questions at this time?
We do not have any questions at this time. If people do have questions, if you're participating, please type your questions in the Q&A box. You can click it on the right-hand side of the screen there. If you don't see that, there's also an event chat where you can type your questions in there as well. We'll give you a few minutes.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, we'll go ahead and give a few minutes for people to digest, and go ahead and type your comments out. We'll be here.
Everyone's very quiet. I'm still not seeing any questions in the Q&A or in the chat, but we certainly have some time, so we'll give it a few more minutes.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, we'll give it one more minute. Oh, here we go. Yay. Here's one for you, Nick. I'm not sure who should take this. For folks in the permit process, the offset threshold changes, is there some sort of grandfathering? In other words, when does the higher offset ratio apply?
Yes.
Nick, I can take that if you'd like.
Sure. Is that Jim?
Thank you, Jim.
Yes.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So good afternoon, everyone. This is Jim Sweeney. I'm chief of the engineering division with the Air District. And the answer to that question is that there is no grandfathering. We've built into our rules that they would take effect on a reclassification. The new things would take effect upon reclassification. So if you have a project before us when a reclassification is about to happen, we would work with you to ensure if we need to get it out ahead of time before the reclassification, or if it wouldn't make much of a difference to you to wait for the reclassification. And the reason for that is that even if we didn't have it built into our rule, under federal law, the additional requirements would take effect upon redesignation.
So that might feed into this next question, which asks, what is the expected timeline for classification currently?
Sure. I can go ahead and try and answer that. I'm off mute, I think. There we go. So at this point, this plan is proposing to reclassify to severe, but the severe reclassification will not occur until EPA makes that reclassification official. That will also have to go through CARB's board as well. So the process from this point will be APCD requesting reclassification to severe as part of this attainment plan. And then as part of CARB's approval afterward, they will then request reclassification of San Diego County to be a severe area once they consider their action, which again their action could be as soon as October 2020. And after that, they will submit that reclassification request to EPA, and then EPA will need to act upon that request. And that is dependent on their time frame. It could be a month, it could be a few more months after that. We do anticipate it occurring prior to the current attainment deadline that we have as a serious non-attainment area, which was July 20th of 2021. So we do anticipate that reclassification happening on EPA's end around summertime of 2021.
Okay, we have one other question. This one's from James Westbrook. How much does ozone transport from LA, OC, or Mexico impact the decision whether to go severe? How much of the impact is from transport?
Yeah, that's a good question. So LA has a significant impact on the emissions here in San Diego County. The emissions that are coming down from the South Coast Air Basin do impact emissions here in San Diego County. Mexico does as well to a lesser extent on certain days, but both do impact emissions, especially on days where it's suited to do that. In terms of the reclassification, I wouldn't say there's a direct impact on that compared to in regards to the reclassification. As we noted, the air quality, the emissions that we were seeing a few years ago when we were close to attaining the 2008 ozone standard, they were primarily caused by hotter temperatures, and they were hotter temperatures here. There were also hotter temperatures in the South Coast Basin, which caused us to not attain on time. So whether that's directly attributable to those regions, it's hard to say. But in terms of severe reclassification, it's simply due to the amount of exceedances that we have, which will dictate why that will occur. And I will probably have a better response in the workshop in regards to this issue in the workshop report. We can try and clarify that a little bit more for you if that's not clear.
Great. I'm not seeing any other questions in the question and answer box, but we'll give it another minute or two in case people still have some that they'd like to type in.
Okay, and Kathy and Nick, this is Jim again. I wanted to clarify one thing that I said in responding to the first question. I mentioned that we had built into our rules, the NSR rules, the different ozone classifications and requirements for them. You currently can't see that on our website because the latest revisions we did to our NSR rules will become effective upon EPA approval of those rules, and so they don't show up as a current rule at the moment. But we have heard that they've completed the comment period on that proposed. It'll be a limited approval, limited disapproval. There's one thing that we have to fix in one of the rules, and so I do expect that will be forthcoming in the Federal Register. Once that does, we will go ahead and update the rules on our website.
Thank you, Jim, for that clarification. I'm still not seeing any other questions in the question and answer box. We'll give it maybe another minute or two and see if people have other questions. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything else appear either in the Q&A box or in the chat. So I think we're probably close to answer. Oh, no, see, that's what I get for saying it's going to close. We have one more. It says, hi, Nick. Thanks for today's meeting. I'm grateful that the district is helping to fund low NOx natural gas engines now. Your slide referencing CARB actions in 2032 mentioned electric and low NOx trucks as strategies to reduce NOx by 165 tons per day. I'm familiar with CARB's recent electric truck I'm thinking he's talking about truck mandate. Keep typing, Sean. Hang on. Oh, maybe it's in the chat. Oh, here we go. CARB's electric truck mandate begin to offer all electric models between 2024 and 2040. I'm also familiar with CARB's omnibus proposal to get diesel to low NOx somewhere around 2028. My sense is that it will take the next 10 to 12 years for heavy-duty electric and low NOx diesels to get into use. So my question is, where do you see these natural gas trucks fitting in the future? I know that renewable fuel biogas projects are underway in the county to be able to reliably supply carbon negative GHG emissions. What priority are these projects that can deliver low NOx now, and how do we get more of these done? Thanks, Sean Edgar.
Great. Thanks, Sean, for tuning in. I guess first I wanted to just clarify that slide that you referenced. We're not anticipating, and maybe it's my interpretation of it, but we're not expecting 165 tons per day of reductions from those measures. That's just the total region-wide emissions inventory that was on the slide that you were referencing. So I just wanted to clarify that first. In terms of where low NOx vehicles and as well as electric trucks fit into the attainment of San Diego County for these ozone standards, I think it will be part of the solution. We're as a local air district, we have to go along with what the state is doing in terms of those regulations. Like you mentioned, there's regulations on the way to require low NOx engines, at least at California's level. That's coming soon. The Advanced Clean Truck regulation that was recently passed by CARB's board last week will also be a part of the solution. In San Diego County, we're going to be relying on both of those to attain at least our 2015 ozone standard. In the section 4 of the attainment plan, there's a CARB commitment section that notes there are 3 regulations that we're expecting that will provide the necessary NOx reductions that we need to attain by 2032 for the 2015 ozone standard. And those include the Advanced Clean Trucks regulations and the low NOx standard, as well as the forthcoming smog check program, the heavy duty inspection and maintenance program. So in reality, we're at the air district, we're kind of fuel neutral, if you want to put it that way, especially on a region-wide basis. We are needing NOx reductions to attain, and whether that's through natural gas trucks going from a high emitting diesel NOx truck to a low emitting low NOx truck, or potentially in disadvantaged communities that may go even farther, where we're supportive of electric trucks going through some of these disadvantaged communities like Barrio Logan, or to get the trucks completely out of those communities altogether. So different reasons, I can see different reasons for both. But I think both technologies will be a part moving into the future. I'm not sure if anybody else at APCD would want to chime in on this, but that's kind of, I think, where we would stand as a local air district.
Great. Thanks, Nick. That I'm just monitoring. I'm not seeing anything else in the Q&A box or in the chat, but we'll give it another minute. Sometimes it takes a little bit for people to type. Oh, it's pretty quiet. So I'm not seeing anything else. Did you want to reiterate perhaps the next steps? Or I think we have
Sure.
another.
Yeah, I'll just kind of refresh everyone on the next steps here. So again, we'll be taking comment on this draft plan and CEQA analysis through the end of the month. We'd like to get your comments as soon as possible, though we will take them up through the end of the month. And then if you would like, you can also join us again on July 13th on Monday. That workshop will be at starting at 9 o'clock. It will be the exact same presentation as we're doing today. So you won't be missing anything. There will be, unless you're looking for to tune in for additional comments and questions that may come in. But the presentation will be the same. So don't feel compelled to go to both if you're not looking like that's a possibility. And then, like I said, we'll be moving forward and hopefully with board consideration in late September.
Great, thanks for that. We do have one more question that's come in. In attachment F or draft of the, I think that's supposed to be of the draft report, are ERCs, ERCS. You anticipate availability post 25 tons per year threshold? Oop. Oh, clarification, was typing fast. Are ERCs sufficient for anticipated project development? How has sufficient availability been evaluated?
I'll try and attempt the ERC issue, and maybe Jim can follow me afterwards. But in terms of ERCs in relation to this attainment plan, we have included them within the modeling and the emission inventory that's been done as part of the modeling, so that if for some reason those ERCs are put into place in the future, they wouldn't jeopardize our attainment, our projected attainment of either ozone standard. I hope that answers your question, Shirley. Jim, did you have anything potentially you might want to add to that?
Yeah, so if Shirley's question is getting towards, we'll have more projects with the lower thresholds, we will have more projects that will trigger offsets, and are offsets available? That is a difficult question to answer. We don't have a large bank of credits. So the question would be, would the people who own those credits be willing to sell those credits to companies that need them? The recent projects that we've had that have triggered ERCs, those have been power plant projects. Some of them have had to go out and create their own credits, their own reductions to be used. And we might end up seeing more of that happening. But again, until we start getting projects that trigger offsets and can figure out if the people who currently own the ERCs are willing to part with them, we won't be able to really answer that question.
Thank you, Jim.
And Shirley typed back and said, yes, it does. I think she means it. Yes, it does answer the question.
Great.
I hope that's what that means. Just waiting to see if there are any other questions. Give it one more minute. Oh, you guys are quick. Oh, it's Shirley saying, thanks, Nick. Thanks, Jim. Good. Glad we were able to answer that. We'll give it one more minute and see if there's any other questions that pop up. I'll jinx it by saying, hey, I don't see anything else. It doesn't look like we have any further questions or comments at this time. So I think we're ready to wrap up this webinar and encourage people to send their comments in if they have them. Did you have any closing remarks, Nick? Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything else to add. I was just going to reiterate that same comment you just made. Just hoping for comments as soon as possible, but by July 31st. And if you're wanting to tune in again on Monday, if you missed anything, feel free to do so. And thank you, everyone, for joining the meeting.